I'm Judge Gwen Davis-Yancey, and welcome to Mindshift Relationship Court, where we explore mindsets, habits, and relationships and their impact on your life from the family room to the boardroom. This court takes expert testimony and gives mindshift rulings to empower you to realize that you really can mindshift and live your best life yet. Now we have the exciting opportunity to have our expert witness who has testified in the court before, and she has so much empowering information to provide you that we have asked her to come back. So I want to welcome you back.
Thank you.
And you probably remember that I like to start off with an icebreaker. And to recap, I like to do an icebreaker because court can seem so overwhelming. Court can seem so intimidating for people. You know, when they go to court and all these people are in the courtroom, so many things are going on. And I understand that because I've been a litigation attorney for 24 plus years. So that's why I wanted Mindshift Relationship Court to be in a more relaxed setting, because I want all of the court viewers, all of the viewers to really get all of the empowerment that you as the expert witness has to say, as well as really understand and listen to the Mindshift rulings. So, are you ready for the icebreaker?
Yes, I am.
All right. So this icebreaker is, what childish things do you still like to do as an adult?
I'm so embarrassed, but I still love playing video games.
You love playing, but what's your
Yes.
favorite video games?
I'm old school, so Nintendo, Super Mario 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much one of my favorite. Mario Brothers, the first one. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how long have you played video games?
Ooh, as far as the childhood, I played it all my life pretty much.
Okay.
And now, of course, with having kids and everything, introducing them to, you know, the old technology, what they like to call it, Nintendo. They enjoy it, and just being able to show them what I grew up with.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
definitely an eye-opener for them, you know, going from just a controller with 2 buttons to like 10 buttons on a controller now.
Yes.
So yes, it's totally different for them, but it still keeps that, you know, that childhood memories of me being able to, you know, try to get to the end of the game.
Yes, yes. And you know, I think it's important for all of us to have something that we can relate to and not feel that it's necessarily childish,
Right.
but it just helps us, you know, relax. It helps us have fun.
Keep the youth.
Keep
your youth.
Keep our youth and be seasoned.
Yes.
Be a seasoned youth.
Yes.
You know, I know a lot of times there's a lot of focus on being young, but I'm going to tell you, I've learned so much over the years that I appreciate being a seasoned youth.
Exactly.
So I want you to say your name and your profession. I know that you testified here before, but we have some new viewers, and so I want you to tell your name and your profession.
Okay. My name is Deena Pruitt. I own the company Pruitt Hand-to-Hand Bookkeeping and Accounting Services in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm the owner and I'm an accountant.
Okay, and so you're out of Atlanta, Georgia?
Yes.
And how long have you been an accountant?
I've been an accountant for 17 years.
Wow.
Long time.
So what are some of the things that you would tell the Mindshift Relationship Court viewers about going into the accounting field? What would be some of the advice that you would give?
My advice is get as much experience as you can, along with the education. I was lucky to go into my career without having my degree. I was actually in school at the same time, but being able to have both that experience and that degree is your double threat at that point. You're very marketable too when it comes to time for you to find an increase in salary and find the different avenues in accounting.
Okay, now that's interesting because you said that, and let me see if I understood it clearly. Were you working in the accounting field while you were in school?
Yes, I was.
And how were you able to pull that off?
I guess just being able to, you know, them knowing that I'm coming in at an entry level status.
Okay.
And also before that, I was a bank teller as well. So I started off working in the cash management department for a company, which deals with, you know, not physically with the cash, but just knowing the ins and outs of working with banks and things like that. So I was able to get my experience, and of course, being able to have, not saying I have the gift of gab or anything, but to have that, being able to communicate and still utilize what I've learned in school to communicate effectively and let them know what I can and can, what I can do within their organization, pretty much.
Now, you mentioned communicate effectively. That is a powerful statement, especially for today.
Yes.
Since we are in the age of everybody's looking at their phones,
Yes.
their tablets, their computers, and some of the younger people, and many even the ones in their 40s and 50s, are walking around without the ability to really communicate because of email,
Yes.
texting, messenger, inboxing, and all of that. So that communication, expound a little bit on how important the communication is.
It's very important, especially being in the accounting field. And I like to tell my clients that I'm old school, so I feel like the face-to-face interaction, because when you're talking about someone's financials, of course you can discuss it over the phone, but having that face-to-face interaction with them and let them know what's going on with their accounting books and the process and things like that, you get a more of a different effect than just being over the phone, because you can actually be able to relate with them and communicate a little bit more in detail about what's going on, because you want to see their expression to see if they're actually going to take that serious or not to move to the next step.
Yes, yes. And you mentioned seeing their expression, and that moves things to a level of beyond the phone.
Exactly.
Because you can't see someone's expression over the phone. And you can gauge a lot that in terms of communicating with that person, in terms of what is the next step in business with that person when you're able to have a face-to-face meeting. And sometimes you can even do it video conferencing.
Yes. And I do have most of my clients here, but I do have some clients outside of the state of Georgia as well. So I use the Join Me session. We do the videos, especially when I do training as well. I utilize the system. But it's nothing like being able to be in front of that person, because not only that, you get that awareness that they're actually looking out for your best interest as well. Like they're actually serious about about what you have going on as a business owner, and how the accountant can help you grow pretty much.
Yes.
So being able to have that communication and being able to have that face-to-face versus, like you said, over the email, phone, and things like that, is not as effective.
Yes, yes. Well, we're going to expound on your testimony and resume that testimony in the Mindshift Relationship Courtroom after this break. You are one decision from your next level. When you shift away from fear, you can begin to shift into your future. Your success is actually waiting for you. I'm Judge Gwen Davis-Yancey, and we are here at Mindshift Relationship Court, and we're actually going to be resuming the expert testimony of Deena Pruitt. And I know we talked earlier, but now we're officially in the Mindshift Relationship Courtroom, so I would like to swear you in. And before I do that, I do want to remind you that I have your file. I do take notes while you're talking, and I do that because as we develop the Mindshift exhibit board for the viewers, I want to make sure that I have some of the key points that you make during your testimony. So I'm paying close attention, as well as the viewers are paying close attention. So if you could raise your right hand. Do you agree to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to empower the Mindshift Relationship Court viewers to the best of your ability?
I do.
Okay, awesome. So can you state your name and your profession for the record?
Yes, my name is Deena Pruitt, and I'm the owner of Pruitt Hand-to-Hand Bookkeeping and Accounting Services.
Okay, awesome. So I know that you have testified before, and we talked a bit about you testified a bit about your business as well as your profession. And what I wanted to do is expound somewhat on our Mindshift exhibit board, but before we do that, I want to ask you a few questions. So I know people encounter numerous relationships that can have a negative impact on how they either account for their money in a personal standpoint or account for their money within their business. So what would you suggest to the Mindshift Relationship Court audience? What would you suggest that they do if, say, a close family member who's always trying to borrow money but is not supportive of what they're trying to do either in their personal finances or their business?
I would say, of course, when dealing with family, that can be a fine line, especially when you're loaning out money to them. My suggestion is that definitely take a deep look in your own finances first to see if that's going to be a burden, and just in case you can actually take that loss, just in case they don't pay you back. And especially if you don't have, if the relative is not that close, I would say get a loan, a promissory note, just like you would go to a bank and get a loan. Because at least you'll have your documentations together and in place just in case that you have to take them to court.
Yes. So if a person is asking a family member, okay, they've asked them for money, they have a history of not paying it back, and they're not being supportive in whatever business, and they ask the person to sign a promissory note, what type of suggestion would you have in regards to how to approach that? Or should they just say no?
My suggestion is to say no, knowing that they know the history of their family member of not paying back. But it goes back also, if they're doing something to hopefully to improve their lifestyle, or is it for education and things like that, I would say, if anything, instead of doing it as a loan or anything, gift, donation. But other than that, if they feel like that they're not going to be able to get that money back, I suggest no. Because you definitely, saying no is probably much easier than having to have issue with a family member, long term, knowing that you have to see that person all the time, knowing that they owe you money and you know you're not going to get it back. So I would just end it there and just say no.
Just say no. But you did testify and mention about a gift or donation. So is there a way for a person to actually write a gift or donation off on their taxes in a situation like that?
They can, but it's dependent on, it more goes back to the organization more than a personal, because that's on a personal note. And you definitely have to be careful and not cross that fine line. I always tell my clients, if you're going to do that, I suggest them talking with their CPA to get a little bit more information on whether or not it is, they're able to write it off. But at least you have some documentation in place to say that you were donating that. But mostly donation is more or less to more organization than it is for personal.
Okay. And so what kind of mindsets do you believe business owners need to change how they progress in their business? Like initially, if they're disorganized, or initially they're dealing with family who are not being supportive, but yet they're trying to dip into their pockets. What kind of mindsets do you believe that a person needs to change how they're progressing in their business under those circumstances?
It goes back to being able to say no sometimes. You have to. If you're looking for your business to flourish and grow, there are going to be times where you have to take a step back and realize that you're running this business, of course, to make money, but not to give it out, not to sell money. You're in it to make the money. So you have to be careful about not even just family member, but even, employees, when you bring someone into your organization who's looking to, work for you. Because that goes back to, theft, fraud, things of those nature that can come about. But an owner definitely has to do their due diligence on their end, and just to be able to say no to certain things and knowing, really when to make that right decision. It's definitely hard to say, for an owner to tell them whether they should or should not do it, because of course we don't know the mind and the heart of an owner. You have some owners and some people out there who are just that caring and giving, that they're willing to give the shirt off their back. But when you're running a business, you have to think back at the end of the day, like, this is my livelihood.
Yes.
And this is to provide for my family, and not to take money out of their mouth.
Yeah, so they have to have a mindset that they can say no when they need to say no. And what are some of the other mindsets that you suggest that they should have?
Definitely get their finances and organization together. If you don't have your finance in order, you can pretty much look to be put in a detrimental situation, meaning that you're not able to pay your own bills, you're not able to provide. So just knowing what your habits are when it comes to spending money, and knowing what your habits are when you're, again, lending money, and also even when you're borrowing money. You have to be careful when you're borrowing money, because you can put yourself in too much debt as a business, and which can actually eat you up when it comes to like interest and late fees and things like that when you can't pay on time.
Yeah.
So definitely think about before you make that decision, just think about long term what kind of effect it could have on you and your family.
So does that go into play regarding planning?
Yes, it does. Planning is, and that's my number one thing I tell my clients, you have to plan. I don't ever suggest you doing things just right off the bat. You have to analyze and you have to plan out things that, especially like if you're trying to purchase an equipment, even a car, everyone plans to buy a house. You have to put those things in place because you have to be able to make sure, again, that you are able to afford and being able to pay for those items.
Yes.
You have to. So planning does come into place if you're planning to roll out a particular services. How you plan on pricing that? How you plan on advertising that particular services to be able to have a return on your investment? And just being able to have something in place to make sure that you at least know where you need to go back to if something doesn't happen, to more of a start over and see where you might have to make some adjustments.
That's awesome. So we're going to resume your testimony. We're going to recess for a few moments, and we will resume after this break. There's a secret to developing a powerful, cohesive team, and one of the best tools is developing powerful decision-making abilities. This can be accomplished by utilizing the Mindshift power factors, which will increase focus, motivation, and confidence. And when you do this, decision-making abilities will also increase. So the secret to a powerful, cohesive team is powerful decision-making abilities, and it all starts with a mind shift. I'm Judge Gwen Davis-Yancey of Mindshift Relationship Court, and we are back in session with our expert witness, Deena Pruitt, who is an expert in accounting and bookkeeping. And we're going to expound on our Mindshift exhibit because I know you testified earlier and we talked about being disorganized, we talked about no planning, and we're going to expound a little bit about vision. You said some very important key words. You talked about due diligence, you talked about source documents, you talked about start over, you talked about outflow. And so with all of these, the different words in the testimony that you have, how does that relate to a business owner not having vision? And how does not having vision relate to no planning and relate to being disorganized?
Of course. If you have no vision, you have no business to me. If you don't have a vision of how your company is going to grow and how are you going to produce the revenue to help fund that company, you have to have a vision in place. You have to have some kind of a goal that you want to reach in order to get to that point. And in order to get to that, to get to that vision, you have to plan. Planning is the key. Planning, it allows for you to be able to make sure that whatever your steps are in the process, if something fails in one of that process in the planning, you can always go back to fix it, to tweak it and to make it better in order to get to the point of getting to that vision. And again, we were talking about organization. Being organized, having your paperwork into place, having everything together allows for you to be able to put everything. You have to organize first and then put your plan on paper to get to your vision.
Yes. So I'd like you to make a column on the other side, and on the same area line that you have disorganized, put organize.
Okay.
And on the same line with no planning, put planning. And on the same line with no vision, put vision. I like to use the Mindshift exhibit board because many times when we hear something, you know, it can resonate with us when we first hear it, but when we can also see it, it affects two senses, you know, our sense of hearing, our sense of sight, and it can begin to really get inside of you, because all of this testimony that you're providing the Mindshift Relationship Court viewers is extremely important in people moving forward personally as well as in their business. And so, you know, when you think about going from disorganized to organized, what are some of the tips that you would provide the court and the court viewers to go from disorganized to organized, say, starting with your business?
Good point. For example, you need to get your data together. You need to find out where all your expenses are going, your inflows and your outflows. Where that is going to start is with your bank statement, for example. Your bank statement is going to pretty much tell the story and the detail as far as, you know, what's going on with your business. In order to get organized, you have to know what's going on. What are you spending up money on? And that helps you to organize those transactions in the financial system. Putting all, for example, your supplies together, telephone calls, things like that. It allows for you to break those expenses out into those categories, which is helping you organize your expenses.
And that can go for both personal and business.
Yes, it can. Yes, exactly. Yes. And from a personal, you definitely, again, going back, looking at your bank statement, if you're going down your bank statement and you see that, for example, you've been out to eat like 20 times, it allows for you to be able to say, okay, I know that's food, and I spent, you know, $100. Oh, I might need to cut back on that, on the spending of me going out to eat.
Yes. So when we look on the Mindshift exhibit board for your testimony and you look at no planning and planning, so what would you suggest, what kind of habits would you suggest that the court audience incorporate to go from no planning to planning? Because a lot of people really don't plan things out, whether it's dealing with their money or not. They don't plan things out. So what are some of the habits that you would suggest that the viewers incorporate so that they can shift from no planning to planning?
I would say always plan months ahead out. Don't wait till the last minute to plan things. That's from business and personal. It's just like when you travel. You don't want to wait till the last minute to try to book an air flight, whether it's personal or business, because guess what? You're going to be paying twice as much the day before than you plan it out and booking that flight like months out, especially if you already know where you're going. So if you were to go out and view the vacations as far as like, you know, your airfare, I say vacation, but airfare, and you realize like, oh, I know if I go ahead and book it now, I won't be paying $200 or $300 more for a flight that really is only $200 instead of paying $400 or $500 for it. So always go and look at the situation that you have at hand, that you have to do something that is needed, equipment that you need to purchase for your company. Go out, shop around, look and see what it costs for you to get that equipment. Plan it out. That allows for you to budget your money, being able to save versus you having to go and finance it. When you finance it, you're paying more in interest. So when you're planning it out, you're saving your money. You're paying for it cash versus you actually going out and getting a loan to finance it.
And that's awesome. And all of those takes a person from no vision to vision.
It does. It
does. You know, and that's very important because, you know, we have to be organized. We have to plan. We have to have a vision. And you kind of start with a vision so that you can begin to plan. And then as you begin to plan, now you can begin to get organized.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate your expert testimony for the court today and for the viewers. And as the expert witness in court, your testimony is valuable. and you are excused as a witness today.
Thank you.
I'm Judge Gwen Davis-Yancey of Mindshift Relationship Court, and the Mindshift ruling for today is your habits will determine whether your vision is organized or disorganized, and you definitely want an organized vision because you want to go from vision to planning to organization for your future. And always remember that your mind is extremely powerful and you have power over your mind, so you can mind shift and live your best life yet. Mindshift Relationship Court is adjourned.